Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to bring you a battle between the three Clash Pack decks for Magic the Gathering. Over here is Fate and Fury from Magic 2015 core set. We have Power and Profit over there from Fate Reforged, and we have Armed and Dangerous from Magic Origins. And we're just going to play one 3-player multiplayer game with the last man standing being the winner. We'll roll to see who goes first. Fate and Fury rolls a 4. Power and Profit rolls a 6. Armed and Dangerous rolls a 4. Power and Profit will go first. We'll draw our opening hands. Power and Profit draws a Satyr Wayfinder, Murderous Cut, Hero's Downfall, Island, Jungle Hollow, Reaper of the Wilds, and Nemesis of Mortals. This is a 2-lander, but because of the Satyr Wayfinder, I think we can keep it and hope we can get the rest of the lands that we need to make this deck functional. Armed and Dangerous draws a Blossoming Sands, Swamp, Forest, Siege Rhino, Evolving Wilds, and Plains. I do like the Siege Rhino, but I think a 6-lander is a no-keep, and so we're going to mulligan. Because this is multiplayer, we'll get one free mulligan. Armed and Dangerous draws a Swamp, Siege Rhino, Pacifism, Incremental Growth, Blossoming Sands, Valorous Stance, and Scoured Barrens. It's a bit of a slow hand, but hopefully we'll be able to draw into some kind of gas, and we have all of our colors here, so we'll keep this hand. Fate and Fury draws an Island, Font of Fertility, Nessian Game Warden, Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, Forest, Elvish Mystic, and Voyaging Satyr. I think we keep this on the strength of the Elvish Mystic and the lands that we have here. Since this is multiplayer, we'll draw our opening turns. Power and Profit draws a Courser of Kruphix. We'll play the Jungle Hollow. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. You can tap for black or green. Go up to 21, and Power and Profit will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous draws a Cash Defenses. We'll go ahead and play the Blossoming Sands first. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life, and you can tap for green and white. We'll go up to 21, and then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury draws a Forest. We'll play the Forest. We'll tap the Forest and cast an Elvish Mystic. This is a 1/1 Elf Druid, and you can tap it for green. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Power and Profit untaps, draws, gets a Forest. Next we'll play the Island, and we'll tap both of these and cast the Satyr Wayfinder. This is a 1/1 Satyr. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. We have a Swamp, a Forest, an Opulent Palace, and a Swamp. We'll take the Opulent Palace and put it into our hand, and we'll put the other 3 into the graveyard. And then Power and Profit will pass a turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps, draws, gets an Abzan Ascendancy. We don't have anything that we really need to play right now, and so we're going to play the Scoured Barrens next. This is the land. It enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you gain a life, and you can tap for white or black. We'll go up to 22 life. And then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury untaps, draws, gets a Fated Intervention. Next we will play the Forest. We will tap 2 mana to play a Voyaging Satyr. This is a 1/2 Satyr Druid. You can tap to untap target land. We'll also tap the Elvish Mystic to play the Font of Fertility. This is an enchantment. For 1 and a green, you can sack it to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Power and Profit untap. They draw a Herald of Torment. Here we're going to play the Forest, and then we're going to go to combat, and we will attack Armed and Dangerous with the Satyr Wayfinder for 1. Armed and Dangerous goes down to 21. And then we'll tap 3 mana and cast the Courser of Kruphix. This is a 2/4 enchantment Centaur, and you play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land card, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So we'll reveal the top card, which is an Opulent Palace, and then Power and Profit will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps, draws, gets a Top and Free Blade. We'll play the Swamp now, and then Armed and Dangerous will spend 2 mana and cast the Top and Free Blade. This is a 2/2 Human Soldier with Vigilance and Renown 1, and then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury untap, Draw gets a Cura's Follower. We will play the Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. It's a legendary land. You can tap it for colorless, and then you can pay 2 and tap it, choose a color, add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. Our devotion is 3 right now. We will hold up Faded Intervention and pass the turn, but we have a bit of a combo set here. Power and Profit untap. They draw an Opulent Palace. They will play an Opulent Palace. It's a land, it enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap for black, green, or blue. I think we have to stay on the defense here, and so we will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. Draws a Citadel Castellan. Armed and Dangerous doesn't really have a good attack at the moment, so we will tap out and cast the Citadel Castellan. This is a 2/3 human knight with Vigilance and Renown 2, and then we will pass the turn. At the end of Armed and Dangerous's turn, we are going to tap the 2 force to power Nykthos to add 3 mana to our mana pool. We'll tap the Voyaging Satyr to untap the Nykthos, and then we will use 2 of those 3 manas to tap the Nykthos again to get 3 more mana. And so we have 4 mana. We will tap the Elvish Mystic for the 5th mana, and we will cast Fated Interventions. This is an instant. It says put 2 3/3 green centaur enchantment creature tokens onto the battlefield. If it's your turn, scry 2. We'll be using these 2 dice to represent the centaur tokens, and then we'll scry 2. We will put the forest on the bottom and leave the Nessian Game Warden on top. And then we'll untap. We draw a Nessian Game Warden. We will play an island. Here we'll tap 5 mana and cast the Nessian Game Warden. It's a 4/5 beast when it enters the battlefield. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of force you control. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Take a look at the top 2 cards. We have 0 creature cards, so we will put them on the bottom of the library in this order here with the divination on the bottom, because that's not going to be that useful at the end of the game. And then I guess we can rumble, and so we will swing with the 2 3/3s at Armed and Dangerous. Armed and Dangerous need to go in on the attack to win, and so we will take 6 and go to 15. Then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Power and Profit untaps. They draw their Font of Fertility. We'll reveal the next card, which is a Brain Maggot. And then we will play another Opulent Palace tapped. We will tap 1 forest to cast a Font of Fertility over here. Then we'll just keep mana up for whatever we might need to do here. And Power and Profit will pass a turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. They draw a Citadel Siege. We don't have the mana to cast that. I think we want to get the 2 creatures up and going, and so we want to attack. Since they have Vigilance, they can defend, and so what we're going to do is we are going to spend 2 mana and cast Valorous Stance, targeting the Courser of Crufix. This is an instant. It says choose 1. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. We'll choose the second mode to destroy the Courser of Crufix. Unfortunately, Power and Profit don't have a response. The Courser of Crufix will die. And then Armed and Dangerous will attack Power and Profit with both the Top and Freeblade and the Citadel Castellan. Power and Profit will tap out and cast Hero's Downfall, targeting the Citadel Castellan. It's an instant. It says destroy target creature or planeswalker. Citadel Castellan dies. Power and Profit will decline to block the Top and Freeblade, and will take 2 to go to 19. The Top and Freeblade gains Renown and becomes a 3/3. And then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury untap. They draw an Elvish Mystic. Now they will tap the 2 force to tap Nykthos for 5 green mana. They will use the Voyaging Satyr to untap the Nykthos. We'll spend 2 of that mana and retap Nykthos for 5 more green mana. So we have 8 green mana available to us right now. We'll cast another Nessian Game Wardens and look at the top 2 cards. We have a Karametra's Acolyte. We'll put that in our hand, and the island will go to the bottom. And then we have 3 floating mana remaining. We'll spend those 3 as well as this blue mana to cast Kyora's Follower. This is a 2/2 Merfolk. You can tap it to untap another target permanent. And then the final 2 mana we will use to use the Font of Fertility's ability. We'll sacrifice it and go looking for a forest. We'll put that onto the battlefield tapped. We'll shuffle. And then we will tap the Elvish Mystic to cast another Elvish Mystic. We'll go to combat and swing at Armed and Dangerous with the Nessian Game Warden and Power and Profit with the 2 3/3 Centaurs. Power and Profit will take 6 and go to 13. Armed and Dangerous will take 4 and go to 11. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Power and Profit untap. They draw Brain Maggot. They'll spend 4 mana and cast Reaper of the Wilds. This is a 4/5 Gorgon. Whenever another creature dies, scry 1. You can pay black to give it Death Touch and 1 in green to give it Hexproof. And then Power and Profit will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. Draws a forest. We'll play the forest. We need to get some defense going, so we'll tap everything and cast a Siege Rhino. It's a 4/5 Rhino with Trample. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. We'll go back up to 14. Fate and Fury goes down to 17. Power and Profit goes down to 10. And then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury untap. They draw a Divination. Go ahead and spend 3 mana to cast Divination. This is a sorcery. It says draw 2 cards. We draw a Curse of Swine and a Forest. Play the Forest. Don't have good attacks anymore, but I think the Curse of Swine will be able to help in future turns. In the meantime, we will tap 4 mana to play the Karametra's Acolyte. This is a 1/4 human druid. You can tap it to add an amount of green to your mana pool equal to your devotion to green. The devotion is now 9. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn for now. Power and Profit untap. Draw an island. We'll play the island. We'll tap 2 mana and cast Brain Maggot. This is a 1/1 enchantment insect, and when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand and you choose a non-land card from it. Exile that card until the maggot leaves the battlefield. We will target Armed and Dangerous, and we will take the Citadel Siege. And then we will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. Draws a Feat of Resistance. We are going to just hold defensively for the time being and pass the turn. Fate and Fury untap. Draws a Forest. Play the Forest. I think we still need a little something more before we can break this deadlock with the Curse of the Swine, and so we will hold steady and pass the turn. At the end of the turn, Power and Profit will tap the forest and the island and sacrifice the Font of Fertility to grab a land. We'll put a swamp onto the battlefield tapped. We'll shuffle. Power and Profit untaps. They draw a Commune with the Gods. We will spend 2 mana and Commune with the Gods. This is a sorcery. It says reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or enchantment card from among them into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard. We have an Eidolon of Blossoms, a Nyx Weaver, an island, a Whip of Erebos, and a Opulent Palace. I think, as strong as the Whip is, I think that Eidolon of Blossoms will get us the most value in the end, and so we will take the Eidolon of Blossoms and put the rest into the graveyard. And then we will spend 4 mana to cast the Eidolon of Blossoms. This is a 2/2 enchantment spirit, and whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card, and then Power and Profit will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous will draw. They get a Scoured Barrens. We'll play that tap. We'll gain a life to go up to 15. Don't really have a way to deal with what my opponents are up to here. We want to keep 2 mana up for Feat of Resistance, so we will pass the turn for now. Fate and Fury, draw another Elvish Mystic. We'll tap a forest, cast another Elvish Mystic, and then we'll pass the turn. Power and Profit untap. They draw a Murderous Cut. We have some options here to murderously cut things. Fortunately, we have 10 life, so we don't really want to cast the Herald of Torment anytime soon, but we may have to remove some creatures. So Power and Profit will pass the turn for now. Armed and Dangerous untaps. They draw a Dromoka the Eternal. I think that's worth casting, so we will tap out and cast Dromoka the Eternal. This is a 5/5 legendary dragon. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, bolster 2, and then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury untaps. Draws, gets a Nessian Courser. At this point, I think we will have to start dealing with everything that the opponents are doing right now, because there's just too much going on here, especially with Dromoka actually providing a threat to this ground-based crew. And so we will tap the island and then use the Voyaging Satyr to untap the island, retap the island, and then we'll pay 2 forests to tap the Nykthos for 9 green mana, of which we will spend 5 to cast Curse of the Swine. It's a sorcery. It says exile X target creatures. For each creature exiled this way, its controller puts a 2/2 green boar creature token onto the battlefield. We'll target the top and free blade, the Siege Rhino, Dromoka, the Reaper of the Wilds, and the Eidolon of Blossoms. In response, Power and Profit will tap the forest and the island and use the Reaper of the Wilds ability to give it hexproof. It will exile the Eidolon of Blossoms, and then we'll turn it face down to make it a 2/2 boar. We will also be exiling these 3 and making them all 2/2 boars. As long as we're at it, we have the extra mana available. We'll exile the 3 Elvish Mystics to make them all 2/2 boars as well. And then we have 1 mana remaining. We will tap 1 more forest to cast a Nessian Courser. It's the 3/3 Centaur Warrior, and then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. At the end of the turn, Power and Profit will tap 2 black mana, and actually we'll tap the rest of the mana, for a total of 5 mana. We'll be casting 2 Murderous Cuts, exiling 5 lands from the graveyard. To Murderous Cut both Nessian Game Wardens. This is an instant. It says Delve, and you can destroy target creature. Fate and Fury lose both Nessian Game Wardens. Then Power and Profit untap. We draw a Satyr Wayfinder. We'll go ahead and spend 2 mana and cast another Satyr Wayfinder. We'll reveal a Nyxweaver, Satyr Wayfinder, Evolving Wilds, and Evolving Wilds. We'll take the Evolving Wilds, put it into our hand, and dump the rest in the graveyard. We'll play the Evolving Wilds. This is a land. You can tap it and sacrifice it to search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. We'll go ahead and tap and sacrifice it immediately to search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Go ahead and grab a forest, then shuffle. We have 4 creatures in the graveyard, and so we're going to tap 2 green mana and cast Nemesis of Mortals. This is a 5/5 snake, and it costs 1 less for each creature in your graveyard. And then you can spend 7 green to Monstrosity 5. We will be doing that next turn, and I think we should be able to start removing opponents quickly after that. But for now, we'll pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. They draw a Blossoming Sands. We'll play the Blossoming Sands, gain another life to go up to 16. Don't have much in the way of creatures, and the Absent Ascendancy doesn't do much as of right now. I think the snake is the biggest threat right now, and so we're going to tap 2 mana and cast Pacifism on the snake. This is an aura, it enchants creature, and the enchanted creature can't attack or block. And then we'll hold the rest of our mana defensively and pass the turn. Fate and Fury untaps. They draw an Elvish Mystic. It's not great, but we'll just tap the forest and play another Elvish Mystic. Don't have good attacks, and so we'll pass the turn. Power and Profit untap. They draw a Sultai Ascendancy. We'll go ahead and tap 3 mana and cast the Sultai Ascendancy. This is an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard, and put the rest back on top of your library in any order. We don't have good attacks, unfortunately, and so we will pass the turn. Armed untaps. Draws a Lightwalker. We will tap 2 mana to cast the Lightwalker. This is a 2/1 human warrior, and it has flying as long as it has a +1/+1 counter. We will be hoping to give that the counters very soon and start attacking. For the now, we will pass the turn. Fate and Fury untap. They draw a Karametra's Acolyte. We'll spend 4 mana, cast a Karametra's Acolyte. We have a lot of mana and nothing to do with it, and then we'll pass the turn. Power and Profit untap. We'll look at the top 2 cards here. We have a Satyr Wayfinder and a Sultai Soothsayer. At this point, the Wayfinder is not doing much for me, so we'll put that in the graveyard. But we will keep the Soothsayer on top. We'll draw the Sultai Soothsayer, and then we will spend 5 mana to cast the Sultai Soothsayer. This is a 2/5 Naga Shaman. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put any one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. We have a Swamp, a Sultai Charm, a Monastery Siege, and a Forest. At this point, we have to find our way into our bombs. So we will pitch everything except for the Monastery Siege, and we'll put that into our hand. And we will hold because we want to be able to defend our Reaper of the Wilds, so we'll pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. They draw a Sandstep Citadel. We'll play that. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for white, black, or green. And then we will spend 3 mana and cast Catch Defenses. It's a sorcery. It says Bolster 3. That will put it on the Lightwalker, making it a 5/4 flyer. Currently, it looks like Power and Profit might be the more dangerous player, and so we will swing the 5/4 at Power and Profit. Power and Profit cannot block. We'll take 5 and go to 5. And then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury untap. They draw a Forest. They'll play the Forest, and then Fate and Fury will keep their defenses up and pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untap. They'll look at the top 2 cards, and they will put the Merciless Executioner in the graveyard and put the Scuttling Doom Engine in their hand. We need something to deal with Armed and Dangerous before they kill us on the following turn. Unfortunately, we can't attack very well. So at this moment, I think we're going to play the Herald of Torment defensively. We'll spend 5 mana and cast Herald of Torment. This is a 3/3 enchantment demon. Bestow 3 black and flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, and it gets +3/+3 and has flying. We'll go ahead and stick that on the Satyr Wayfinder, making it a 4/4 flyer. That will defend against the Lightwalker, but it'll limit our turns to 5. And then we will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untap. They draw at Plains. We'll play the Plains. I think that it's worth attacking here, and so we will swing at Power and Profit again with the Lightwalker. For lethal, Power and Profit will choose to block with their Herald of Torment creature, and Armed and Dangerous will tap 2 mana and cast Feet of Resistance. This is an instant. It puts a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and it gains protection from color of your choice until end of turn. We'll put a counter on the Lightwalker, making it a 6/5. And it'll also get protection from green. This defeats the Satyr Wayfinder, and the Herald of Torment will fall off. And then to dissuade ground attacks, we're going to tap out here and cast Incremental Growth. This is a sorcery. It says put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, 2 +1/+1 counters on another target creature, and 3 +1/+1 counters on a third target creature. That makes a nice ground army, and then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fate and Fury draw. They have a Divination. They will happily cast that Divination. We'll draw a Temple of Mystery and an Island. Unfortunately, lands are the least interesting thing here. We'll play the Temple of Mystery. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 1. You can tap it for green or blue. We'll look at the Prophet of Krufix, and right now this is not too impactful, so we'll stick that on the bottom, and then we'll pass the turn. Power and Profit untap. We will take 1 from Herald of Torment to go down, and we'll look at the top 2 cards. We will put the Brain Maggot in the graveyard and keep the Necropolis Fiend on top, which we will draw. This is how we survive, so we will spend 7 mana here and exile 2 lands. Cast a Necropolis Fiend. This is a 4/5 demon with Delve. And flying, you can pay X and tap it to exile X cards from your graveyard, and target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. That we'll be using on their flyer. and then we will pass the turn. Armed and taps. Draws a top and free blade. We'll tap 2 mana and cast a top and free blade, and then we'll spend 3 more mana and cast Abzan Ascendancy. This is an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Everything gets a counter. We're going to attack Power with the Lightwalker. Power will block it with the Herald of Torment. The Herald of Torment will die. And then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fade and Fury on tap. They draw another island. Very useless for this deck. And then we are stuck just waiting, and so we'll pass the turn. Power and Profit on tap. We'll draw a forest. We'll use 7 mana. Tap the Necropolis Fiend, and then exile 7 cards from the graveyard to give the Lightwalker -7/-7. The Lightwalker dies, but it is replaced by a 1/1 spirit token. We also should have looked at the top 2 cards here and dumped none of them. We will actually have kept them both on top. Unfortunately, we failed to do that before this forest. We would have dumped that otherwise. So let's say that we did that. The forest would have been dumped. We will have drawn the Nemesis of Mortals, and that will play into our future plans. But for now, that is the end of Power and Profit's turn. Armed and Dangerous on taps. They draw a Windswept Heath. We'll go to combat and swing at Power and Profit with the 1/1 flyer. Power and Profit cannot block. We'll go down to 3. And then Armed and Dangerous will play the Windswept Heath. It's a land. You can tap it and pay 1 life and sacrifice it to search your library for a forest or plains, put it on the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. Go ahead and do that now to thin the deck. Going down to 15, and then looking for a forest. Put that on the battlefield, tap, and shuffle. And then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fade and Fury draws. You get a Prognostic Sphinx. We'll keep the island in our hand. We'll tap 2 islands and 3 forests to play the Prognostic Sphinx. It's a 3/5 Sphinx with flying, and you can discard a card to give it hexproof until end of turn and tap it. Whenever it attacks, scry 3. So this is our win con now. But for now, we will have to pass the turn. Profit untaps. Draws a Sultai Charm. We can play the next Nemesis Immortal, so we'll do that with 2 green mana. And then we'll spend 3 more mana to cast the Monastery Siege. We should have also looked at the top 2 cards here. And we'll dump the Jungle Hollow and the Commune with Gods at this point. The Monastery Siege is an enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, choose Khans or Dragons. Khans at the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card and then discard a card. And then Dragons spells your opponent's cast that target you or a permanent you control cost 2 more to cast. We'll choose the Khans there. And we will keep everything open for now and pass the turn. Armed and taps. Draws a Jungle Hollow. We'll play the Jungle Hollow. It'll enter the battlefield tap. We'll gain a life to go up to 16. We can't attack anymore because the Necropolis Fiend is untapped. So we are now on waiting for Win Con again. Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. Fade and Fury on tap. Draw. We have a Nemesis of Mortals. We'll tap the Karametra's Acolyte for 6 green mana and cast a Nemesis of Mortals. We have 2 mana floating because there are 2 creatures in the graveyard. We will spend 2 forests to tap the Nykthos for 7 more mana, and we'll spend that to Monstrosity, the Nemesis of Mortals, putting 5+1/+1 counters on it and making it a 10/10. I think we can actually ping in at Armed, so we'll swing at Armed with the Prognostic Sphinx. We'll scry 3. We will put both Kira's followers and the forest on the bottom. Armed needs to stay defensive for now and not lose their 1 flying blocker, so they will take 3 and go to 13. Fade and Fury will pass the turn. Power and Profit on tap. We draw a Night Howler, so we'll spend 2 forests to Monstrosity, the Nemesis of Mortals, making it a 10/10. And then we'll spend 4 more mana to cast a Night Howler on the Nemesis of Mortals. This is a 0/0 enchantment horror with bestow 2 black. It and enchanted creature get +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures in all graveyards. So we'll use a D20 to track this number. There are 9 creatures in this graveyard. 2 creatures in that graveyard, so 11. This should actually have gone on the Reaper of the Wilds. 11, and so there are 12 creatures in all graveyards, so we'll use this dice to put it on the Night Howler. This makes the Reaper of the Wilds a 16-17, and this is how we start chipping in for the win. No matter who we attack, that will kill them, except for we need to keep our defenses up. We didn't use either of these abilities, so we should have actually looked at the top 2. We're actually going to keep them on top, and then it should have caused us to draw the Nyx Weaver, and we'll pitch the Sultai Charm. We'll still hold here, and I think we just have to start attacking to make the opponent's chump. So we'll swing with the Reaper of the Wild into Armed and Dangerous. Armed and Dangerous will chump with a Top and Free Blade. It'll die and become a 1/1 spirit. Power and Profit will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps, and they draw their card, which is a Blossoming Sands. We'll play it, and we'll gain a life to go back up to 14. And then we are on the defense, so we will pass the turn. Fade and Fury untap. They draw a Horizon Chimera. We have enough to block even the Night Howler, so it's not the worst place in the world. The Night Howler should actually be up to 13 now. And then we will attack Armed and Dangerous again with the Prognostic Sphinx. We will scry 3. We will keep the Courser of Kruphix on top and put the 2 lands on the bottom. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Power and Profit untaps. They will look at they'll stack the triggers to look at the top 2. We will put the Forest in the graveyard and leave the Doomwake Giant on top. We'll draw 2, which is a Doomwake Giant and a Forest. We'll put the Forest in the graveyard. And I think this may be a way to create some pain for our opponents. So we'll spend 5 mana and cast the Doomwake Giant. This is a 4/6 enchantment creature giant. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn. This kills the 2 spirits. That should actually increase the Night Howler +2. This also kills the Elvish Mystic, increasing the Night Howler another 1. And then just to make things worse, we're going to tap 3 more mana and cast the Nyx Weaver. This is a 2/3 enchantment spider with reach at the beginning of your upkeep. Put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. You can spend 1 green and black to exile it to return a target card from your graveyard to your hand. This is the second one, putting another -1/-1 on everything. This kills the Curious Follower, the Voyaging Satyr, the 3 Swine, which have now been exiled, and puts everybody else in a pretty bad state. Still don't have great attacks against Fate and Fury, but we will swing with the Reaper of the Wild at Armed and Dangerous. Armed and Dangerous will chump with their 1/1 pig, and it will be exiled. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. To draw Pacifism, we'll spend 2 mana and instantly pacify the Reaper of the Wilds, because they don't have the mana to give it hexproof. That actually occurs this time. And then Armed and Dangerous will pass the turn. At the end of the turn, Fate and Fury will tap 4 mana and cast the Horizon Chimera. This is a 3/2 Chimera with Flash, Flying, Trample, and whenever you draw a card, you gain 1 life. We'll untap. We draw a card. It's a Courser of Kruphix. We'll gain a life to go up to 18. We'll spend 3 mana to cast the Courser of Kruphix. We'll reveal the top card, which is a Forest. We'll play that Forest, gaining another life to go up to 19. Reveal the top card, which is the Voyaging Satyr. We can't really attack the Power and Profit. They can't really attack either right now because of where they're at. And so we'll swing using the Prognostic Sphinx at Armed and Dangerous. We'll scry 3. We will put the Nessian Game Warden on top, the Horizon Chimera and the Voyaging Satyr on the bottom. That'll help us dig for something better. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Power and Profit untap. We'll take a look at the top 2, and we will leave them on top because we're close to decking. We'll draw them both with Monastery Siege and pitch the Swamp. Play the Opulent Palace tapped. So we'll spend 3 mana and use the Nyx Weaver's ability to grab a card from exile. This will be the Whip of Erebos. And so this Nyx Weaver is exiled. And then we'll spend 4 mana to play the Whip. This is a legendary enchantment artifact. Creatures you control have lifelink, and you can pay 2 black to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste exile at the beginning of the next end step. If it will leave the battlefield exile instead of putting it anywhere else, activate this ability only anytime that you can cast a sorcery. So hopefully we'll be using that to grab a little bit of value and then maybe deal with opponent's creatures that way, and maybe try to wrath the board with a chain of enchantments. That is an enchantment that will kill nothing because it's just 1 enchantment, and so we will pass the turn. Armed untaps, draws a Dragon Hunter. We'll tap 1 mana and cast a Dragon Hunter. It's a 2/1 human warrior with protection from dragons. Dragon Hunter can block dragons as though it had reach, and then we'll pass the turn. Fade Fury untap. Draw the Nessian Game Warden. We have an Arbor Colossus on top. That is great. We will tap 2 force to tap the Nixthos for 8 mana. We will cast the Nessian Game Warden. We'll look at 7 deep, which includes the Arbor Colossus. It also includes a Genesis Hydra, Hydra Broodmaster, Aetherspouts, Hypnotic Siren, Jace's Ingenuity, and Forest. The Arbor Colossus kind of does exactly what we need right now. We'll take that and then put the rest on the bottom with Genesis Hydra, the Broodmaster, and the Hypnotic Siren at the top. We have 3 mana floating. We will tap the Karametra's Acolyte to add another 10 mana. So now we have 13 mana. We'll play the Arbor Colossus. This is a 6/6 giant with reach and 3 green monstrosity 3. So now we have 7 mana open, and so we'll immediately monstrosity the Arbor Colossus, making it a 9/9. And then we'll target the Necropolis Fiend with the Arbor Colossus ability. Power loses the Necropolis Fiend. We'll reveal the top card. It's another Karametra's Acolyte. So here we have, I think, a way to win. We are going to swing at Power and Profit with the Prognostic Sphinx. We'll look at the top 3 cards and scry all of them to the bottom, revealing the top card being a Forest. Power and Profit have no way to defend against this, and so they will perish. Everything is leaving the battlefield. Armed and Dangerous will get back the Citadel Siege, and the 2 pacifisms will go into their graveyard. And we also should have attacked Armed and Dangerous with the Horizon Chimera, which is flying. Armed and Dangerous takes 3 and goes to 11. Fate and Fury will play the Forest to go to 20. And then Fate and Fury will pass the turn. Armed and Dangerous untaps. And draw a Lightwalker. We'll spend 2 mana, casting another Lightwalker. Then we'll spend 4 more mana, and we'll cast Citadel Siege. This is an enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, choose cons or dragons. Cons, at the beginning of your combat in your turn, put two +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. With dragons, at the beginning of combat on each opponent's turn, tap target creature that player controls. We'll go ahead and choose cons, putting the 2 +1/+1 counters on the Lightwalker, making it a 4/3. Then hopefully it'll be able to stop my opponent, and then we'll pass to Fade Fury. Fade Fury untap. We'll draw a Forest. We'll reveal a Forest. They'll play the Forest, getting another life to go up to 21. Reveal the top card, which is an island. I think we need to pressure them as much as possible. We can take a counter attack pretty well here, and so I think we just swing with the entire team. We'll scry 3. We'll take the Nemesis Mortals, leave it on top, and put the rest on the bottom. We'll chump the Nemesis with the Dragon Hunter. We'll chump the Arbor Colossus with the 2/3. We'll trade the Lightwalker with the Horizon Chimera. Oh, and we'll block the Nessian Game Warden with the 6/6. We'll take 10 damage to go to 1. And we'll lose everything except for the 6/6. We'll get a 1/1 spirit. And we should gain a life from drawing a card as well. So that'll take us up to 22. Oh, and these two 3/3s, that actually kills armed and dangerous as well. And so that ends with Fate and Fury defeating armed and dangerous and Power and Profit. Let me know what you thought about this game in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.